Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to finish out the day with a strong keynote speaker. I'm super excited, super honored to introduce this individual. I'm sure all of you feel the same way about her that I do, which is she has just been an instrumental, foundational part of this group. I mean, she has such a giving heart and a giving spirit, and she is a force to be reckoned with. And it honestly started when she was just a young gal, getting involved in sports. And her dad came to her and her sibling and said, you got to choose one thing. You got to choose one sport. Choose one thing and be really good at it. And she took that mentality and she lived it. She truly lived it with every fiber of her being. And the sport that she chose was basketball. And she got really good at it. So much so that when she went to college, she set her sights on becoming the highest scoring female basketball player that school had ever seen. And she accomplished it. Not only did she accomplish it, but that record still is held today. Yeah, come on. I mean, it was only a few years ago. So there's still some time. But she took this same elite mentality to whatever she went into afterwards. Of course, studying the greatest minds and mentalities of basketball through Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, that Mamba mentality, she took it to the workplace. So when it came time to graduate from college, she went to a job fair. And at that job fair was a UPS table, and she started the next day. And she didn't expect to start at the top. She started at the bottom, loading trucks. But she picked one thing, and she got really good at it. And she was loading these trucks, and then they got to the time where they were asking who can take on more trucks. So she took on more. And that elite mentality, that work ethic got her recognized from position to position, increasing in her responsibility all the way to the point to where she was in her young 20s and she was managing an entire region of UPS with over 1,000 employees. I mean, absolutely crushing it. Until they asked her to move to New Jersey. No, not for her. If you know her, no, she ain't going. She didn't go. She said, you know what? I'm not going to New Jersey. I'm going to find something else. And not knowing exactly what that was going to be, she went and she needed health insurance. She was leaving her job. So she went and she met with some folks. Actually, Cole Beaver's soon-to-be in-laws, right? Keeping it close to the Legacy family. And they were in the mortgage business. And they taught her the ropes of the mortgage business. Again, not expecting to start at the top, she was working for them for free, learning the business. And they dedicated their time because they saw her work ethic. She saw that she wanted to pick one thing and be really good at it. And that's exactly what she did. She went on to start her own mortgage business that was down near Mount Pleasant in Charleston, in the Charleston area, and grew that business tremendously. And then in 2020, as most of us know, she started a company called Rehab Wallet. And just quick show of hands, how many people have used Rehab Wallet in the room? That's about 20% of the room. I'm currently using Rehab Wallet, and it's helped me transform my business. But since its inception in 2020 to now in 2025, they have raised over $400 million in capital. Is that not insane? $400 million in capital. And counting. We're still going. And again, this is somebody who has such a giving mentality, a giving spirit. She's such a warm individual to be around, and I'm super excited to announce. So please join me in inviting to the stage our very own Kelli Garrett. Come on, make some noise for Kelli. Let's go.
It's so good. Lord have mercy. Thank y'all. Goodness, y'all are my friends. Y'all are my colleagues. Some of y'all are borrowers, and that was good to see a lot of hands. Some of you we have mentored, and some of you are investors. And I think it's harder to talk in front of these guys and you, our friends, than it is to I talk all the time, but here I am a little nervous for the first time. So, you know, when Tim and Annalise called me to speak a little bit, I wanted to know the theme. And the theme, of course, is to get our house in order. So I was trying to decide which way I was going to go, because this could go on legacy planning. You know, I know that Annalise called me and said, I know you got old friends work for you. I know you have family working for you. And while I have struggled with friendship working for us, I have not mastered this family thing. Yes, we have a family member working now, but I've probably ran off way more than presently work. I think that they see the view but don't like the climb. So I decided I'm just not going to do this family thing. I'm not going to have splintered relationships at Thanksgiving anymore. So we've decided I probably started this on my own, but I'm just not really good at the family thing. So I had to change my approach of how I was going to do this, right? So what I wanted to do when we're talking about house, you know, Jetta know this person. A lot of you, he talked about basketball, played basketball at the College of Charleston. Fortunately, I'm All-American there, and have a lot of ties back in my basketball days. And Pat Kelsey, who is a men's basketball coach presently, he's an amazing speaker, an amazing, obviously amazing coach. See what happens at the College of Charleston is you come to the College of Charleston because it's mid-major, you do real well, and then you move on. And so he's at Louisville now, and of course won ACC Coach of the Year. But what he presented at the College of Charleston, he says, our city, our house. And that's what the TD Arena is, our house. And so because it's so loud and it's packed with 6,000, 7,000 people, and our house to me is our business. Our house to me is our culture that we dribble down. So today we're going to talk about our house and how to build our house. And while I might not have done real well in the legacy planning, the house piece of the cards, we're going to have to figure out one day how to, if we're not going to turn it over to family, how to sell it or get bought out by our partners, right? So our house has to be in order, and our culture has to be able to be disseminated down to the people, to not be so dependent on us. Today we have two things to do. If I know how to do this. There we go. We got two things as a leader. That's it. Let's not overcomplicate this stuff. As a leader, our job, Tim mentioned it earlier, is to cast a vision and to build a culture. And I don't want to, if I could just get off the stage right now and just tell you that's all that we have to do as leaders, and quit overcomplicating and thinking about that we have to get results, that we have to create behaviors. But our two jobs is to cast a vision so our employees can see it and build a culture. And I want to build a culture so thick, so strong that it lands and it'll stay put for as long or longer than I'm there. I don't know if many of you know this story, but in 1962, JFK was at NASA. You might have heard this story, and he walks through the halls of NASA. This is the culture that I want. That he walks through NASA, and he walks through the halls, and he runs into a man that was holding a broom, probably was a janitor, what do we think? He stops him and says, "What do you do here at NASA?" And that janitor says, "Mr. President, my job is to put a man on the moon." That's how thick the culture was there. That guy, the janitor, thought and it believed so strongly that the culture or that his job is to put a man on the moon. It's not to sweep the floors. It's not to clean the desks. It's to put a man on the moon. That's the culture that I want, because remember, getting our house in order means that we're going to leave the business one day, whether it's selling it or turning it over to family. But we got to leave a culture that's so strong, because leaders create cultures. Cultures drive behaviors of our employees, and behaviors is what gets us results. Now let me drive something down real quick. Our job as leaders is not to get results. I know we think that we're so important, and that everybody, and I think we pose a little bit, and I think we all get off on this a little bit, that we do everything, and we get all these amazing results. But that's not true. Our job is to build a culture, and the culture builds the behaviors, and those behaviors gets us results. Our employees is who gets us results. So I want to talk deep about that, because when you get average results, you have average leadership. Because average leaders get us average cultures, and average cultures gets average behaviors, and average behaviors gets us average results. You know, he talked about somebody who was, Trevor was talking about this with MJ, is that, and that Bulls team was so talented. It had so many players, it had so many divas, it had so many amazing players on that team. But it would have been bust had it not had Phil Jackson, and everybody on that team knows that. Sometimes it takes the leader to control all the divas. Look, talent is great, but it can't replace the leadership. And it's the leaders that take a team way beyond talent. I know that everybody in here knows what I'm talking about having too much talent. There's lots of teams, and a lot of places and businesses have amazing teams. But it's the leadership that's important to everything, because there's nothing that influences performance more powerfully than culture, and nothing influences culture more powerfully than leadership. And I want everybody to understand that, because we're going to drive this home. There's two different types of cultures. There's a Google culture, and there's an Amazon culture. And I want to explain the difference, because both are very, very successful. Some of you might lean toward the Google culture. The Google culture is very innovative and creative and fun. It's got a creative work environment. It's got a kind of a lax work environment. And then you got an Amazon culture. And Amazon's culture is everybody's seen the warehouse in Amazon. There's not a lot of relaxing going on there, right? It's real strict. It's very hierarchical. It's very, they like chain of commands there. Time commitments, accountability. And Google, because it's kind of run by a bunch of engineers at times, they don't have that same type of structure and the same type of culture, but both are very, very, very successful. I like time commitments. I'm going to lean probably a little bit toward the Amazon culture in this conversation today. I like discipline. I like speed. The culture of a business is our personality. Or the culture, the culture is the personality of a company. Just like our personality as leaders. It kind of follows the leaders. There's plenty of people in here that's probably, might not like the fact that things are too structured and too disciplined. And I get that. At Google, they have a nap room and a masseuse there. I'd have a nervous breakdown if I walked in, my team was taking a nap or playing ping pong. And some of you that run a little more creative, innovative culture, you might be having a nervous tick because I might be too disciplined and boxy and like speed and time commitments. I like to be on time. So there's two very different cultures, but no one, I think Chris Garrison was talking about it, you don't have to like what I like. You have to do what fits into your personality and take that into the culture of your business. And the people that work for us, they like that culture. The same thing with Google. Google's pulling people in every day and recruiting people every single day based on their type of culture, and so are we. I talked a lot about different people that's worked for us, and I initially talked about some people that worked for us a long time or been friends with us a long time, and I'm almost, it's almost hypocritical being up here talking about a team and a vision and a goal and a game plan when with Angela not being up here. So I gotta, everybody, if you don't know Angela, stand up for a second. Angela's, I wouldn't have been able to recruit somebody like Angela Dunn. Angela's already had 30 years experience in corporate America. She's already managed thousands and thousands and thousands of people. See, leaders build cultures, and then the cultures is what recruits and builds behaviors. I've known Angela since she's been 15 years old, and that was a long time ago. She might not look like a lot right now. Neither do I. But she's highly recruited. Goes off and plays for the Indiana Hoosiers. Blows her knee out. Comes to the College of Charleston with a coaching change. Comes here, and we end up being basketball teammates and roommates. But her culture is what's attracted to my culture. We couldn't be more different in people. She's slow as molasses in January. Her emails are 2 pages long, but you'll never, when you leave that email, you don't have any other questions. My emails are 2 sentences long, and hers is 2 pages long. The culture of who we are the same, but our personalities couldn't be more different. The culture of her family is the same, but the personalities might be a little different. The culture of Rehab Wallet or Kelli Garrett had the only way I could recruit somebody. I didn't have those numbers that Trevor was talking about. I didn't have those numbers to attract her. I had a culture to attract her. That's all you got, and that's all you need. So let's go through some cultures and what I'm talking about. And if this is two in a box, that's fine. Just like Chris Garrison says, you can do whatever you want to do. This is my culture, and I'm happy with it because this is the only way that I know, because it kind of travels and attracted to me personally. You know, we go back to personality for a minute, is that the cultures of your employees and the culture of your business is who you are. And who you are is probably somewhere in your past, maybe your childhood. I grew up with being on time. My dad was could do anything, fix anything. We grew up on a small farm. So we worked before school, after school. If he tells you he's going to be there at 11, he'll be there at 10:45. If he shook your hand, I promise you we got done. So we learned from our childhood on what we like. There's nothing lax. There's no naps, maybe on Sunday after church. But other than that, there's no napping going on in the Garrett house at all. So the Amazon culture is what I like, and it's what worked for us. So agendas, let's start right here. The agenda piece at Rehab Wallet, I'm going to bring up because it fits the culture. And the culture at Rehab Wallet, we run through something very similar to EOS. Everybody know what that is? But we don't follow that. We follow 4DX, the 4 disciplines of excellence. Angela gives a book to every employee. Every employee has to read the book. Every employee has to be certified, if you will, in 4DX. That's our culture. We want you to be on time. We start out with some bar graphs. At the top, the highlighted portion is our 2 strategic things at Rehab Wallet that we want to accomplish this year. Everybody's job is going toward those 2 strategic things. Very boxy, very strategic, very structured. Our meeting starts at 11. If you want to talk and have water cooler time, Angela calls it, you show up at 10:55. There's where you can talk about your weekend. There's where you can talk about how cute your haircut looks. But at 11 o'clock, we're at work. And 11 to 11:04, Anna's going to talk. And Anna's going to give that lead and lag measure that's going to drive those 2 strategic goals. There's no whirlwind. There's no talk about anything else except that. And then it drives on down to the end of the day, and we'll be able to finish our day at 11:48. It starts at 11, and we finished our meeting at 11:48. And we're off the phone, and we're back to work. Very structured, very disciplined. That's our culture. That's our culture. I don't know how to run a business except through that. We talk about every networking event, and you don't see 2 networking events. You see every networking event that we could possibly be. Our expectations are extremely high. We expect our sales team to be at these networking events. Somebody at Rehab Wallet's at these. You be on time. You're in your Rehab Wallet gear. You have your booth. You have your name tag. Very structured. That's the culture that we have vicariously through the leader and the leaders that we have figured out that works best for us. There's other things inside the culture at Rehab Wallet that's super important. Not just I didn't figure this out. It just works for me. There's specific little things that are kind of micro inside the culture. And that's being okay to fail. Unless you've been under a rock, you know who this woman is. She misses 6 out of 9 shots every time she shoots. She's going to make 3 out of them. What happens if the coach pulled her out every single time she missed the shot? That'd be a shame. We want that culture to be inside. I'm sure it's in Google. I'm sure it's in Amazon's culture. But it's a subculture inside the main culture. And that's not being afraid to fail. And that you're not running a dictatorship. I don't want somebody. I want them to feel like they can miss 6 shots in a row and not be pulled out of the game. I want Anna to feel like, you know what? I thought that person was going to be a good borrower. Just didn't work out. We got to foreclose on them. If I pulled her out or pulled her in the office every time we missed, her confidence would be down, and then she'd be ringing me every single time on a new loan to be like, hey, should we do this loan? Should we not do this loan? We want her confidence to prevail, just like her, just like Caitlin Clark. Experience is simply the name we give our mistakes. And that's what we got to give our team. That's the culture that we want. Walt Disney is another one. If his investors would have been upset with the first 400 cartoons because he failed, he almost went bankrupt on his first studio, and then he lost a fortune on the next 400. But the 400th one was Snow White. That 83 minutes of Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs is what allowed Walt Disney to even be around that he is right now. If he would have missed, if he would have had the culture of being scared to fail, we wouldn't have Walt Disney. Well, Jeff Bezos, let's talk about some of that. He failed significantly on 3 or 4 products. Amazon Fire Phone, it was real bulky and clunky. He failed to Apple. Amazon Local was competing with Groupon, and it failed. Echo failed. It was competing with Alexa and Siri. He lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And then everything that we live on right now is Amazon Web Services. Homeboy can deliver us he can deliver this tomorrow morning. If I put it on my phone right now, he can deliver this to Charleston, South Carolina tomorrow morning. That's incredible when you know logistics. That Prime has gone from 2 days to 1 day. And he's pushing that. And all that data is on this Amazon Web Service that makes $10 billion a year. But he wasn't afraid to fail, and his investors weren't afraid and would pull the plug on him. And he wasn't afraid, because without cultures, we don't know what we're doing. Without cultures, we have no idea how to actually run a business. Because remember, leaders create the cultures, and the cultures now create the behaviors in our employees. Because if y'all don't believe this, every single day your employees are looking at you and watching what you're doing. There's things that you do. I'm sorry, maybe the drunk Christmas parties might be over for some of us, right? We can't do that anymore. There's just no way you can do that. I don't know how to. Again, my culture is very disciplined, in a box. I'm very particular about what goes on Facebook. I'm very particular about, if I had my druthers, I'd probably be in a hat on backwards and some sweats right this minute to be more comfortable. But you have to present a certain way. You have to carry yourself a certain way if I'm going to run a company with investors, hundreds of millions of dollars. These investors are watching me. These investors are looking at us. Your investors are looking at you. Your investors are watching you. If you're not careful, the culture I get asked more questions from investors about how we're running at Rehab Wallet than any question it is. It isn't, what kind of loans are you putting on the street? What's the loan amount? It's deep questions. These people are giving us, when Trevor was talking, he said 400 million. We've raised 256 million. We've put on the street over 400 million. We've raised 256 million. Y'all do realize that's 6 zeros. You know, sometimes I go back and look and I'm in awe of that. That's a huge cross to bear sometimes. And these investors want to have a culture and want to see what kind of culture we're running to be able to give us their hard-earned money. So the cultures are, we as leaders, and that's me and Ange, we're building cultures every single day. Our employees are getting results. Now let's talk a little bit about some other micro things, right? I jumped into the micro thing about not being afraid to fail, and I didn't want our employees to be able to feel like they can fail. I want them to feel like they can fail and be okay with it. But I also want them to see confidence in us. Sometimes when we ain't got a clue. You know, the first of the year, one of our strategic goals on our 40X system, they're called WIGs, or widely important goals. One is to go from 120 million this year to 150 million. And when we put that goal, where's that goal come from? I ain't got a clue how we're going to do 150 million. Have no clue. Back into it, 150 million divided by 200,000 per loan. That's 750 loans this year. Jason, it's a lot of loans, ain't it? It's a lot. Divide that per month, that's about 63 loans a month. I ain't got a clue how we're going to do that. No clue. We're on target. We're in June. We're on target to make that happen. There's sometimes you have to just say, of course we can do that. And I'm going to tell you another story. Before I opened Rehab Wallet, some of you don't know this, but I hadn't always been in the lending space. I've always been in the real estate space, but not always lending space. But I've bought 8 companies, Rehab Wallet and Consistent Capital, and another company that we have right now called Aspire Finance. It's going to be my last ones. So I'm starting in the lending space, and I'm going to end in the lending space. But in the meantime, I've had service companies. And I had a little company called Carolina Cotton Candy in Summerville, South Carolina. And this is what I bought. It's pretty, ain't it? It's a little house. It's been around for 28 years. It was doing $600,000 in revenue, but their bottom line was $300,000. It was a good P&L. I don't care about the widget. I don't care if it's lending. This is cotton candy and candied apples. Don't care about that. Been in the appraisal company, landscaping. I had every different company. It doesn't matter about the widget. It matters about building a culture. That's what I like to do. So in this little POS of a house, 1,200 square foot house, 1 bedroom is where, stay with me a minute, but it's where 6 women had worked for 25 years, and they're spinning cotton candy. Another bedroom was storage, and another bedroom was a little office, and in the kitchen is where he dipped hundreds of thousands of candied apples. 28 years this company's been in business. But I had a vision, because remember, our 2 jobs is to build a vision and cast a vision and build a culture. That's it. I had a vision because I had come from UPS, what Trevor was talking about. I could see conveyors, I could see racks, I could see things. I could see where I was going with this thing. So I ended up building another building. And but prior to building the building, right before we had moved over to the building, food line calls. Now granted, we had never done any more than 120 cases for anybody ever, for any grocery store. We didn't do birthday parties. We did wholesale to big grocery store chains. They bought wholesale from us. But food line calls, and this is the way it went. I happened to be up there. This is prior to Ange, but she wasn't in it when I first bought it, but she was in it when we got in the new building. But the office manager called and said, Kelly, I said, food line's on the other line. They want to talk to you. And I'm like, food line? Food line calls and says, they don't have a clue. They have no clue that that's the manufacturing plant. And they call and say, hey, I saw your bag in another grocery store. Looked on the back of it, saw the manufacturer, called, looked on the website, of which I had just built. The old lady she'd never had a website before. And said, we want to order 742 cases. And I said, the office manager standing right there, and it was a thing, and I said, she's like, you think you could do that? Are y'all big enough to handle? And I said, of course we could do that. And I figured out the pricing. I knew they had trailers, so I didn't have to deal with the transportation, because you don't want to deal with transportation. It's a moving target, but I could get the cost down on my bags and my cases. And I hung the phone up, and I'm like, I ain't got a clue. How are we going to do this? Have no clue how we're going to do this. But my employees saw me, didn't hear me say that. They saw me say, of course we could do that. They wanted more hours. These ladies they'd work 20 hours a day if we would have let them, wouldn't they? But hadn't we not said yes to 742 cases, every 3 or 4 months, they call another order in, and it'd be 842, and it'd be 942. Because remember, I'm building to sell them. I'm building the culture that's not dependent on me, that I can sell this thing and get out of it at some point, because I'm going to build it to sell it. So I'm going to try to see if this video show you at the end. There he is. This is our new building. There's my forklift. I could see it. I could visualize it. Not a new forklift, but it's a forklift. We're moving. I had to pull this off Facebook. It's been a long time. We sold this in 2019. The last order was 9,000 cases of cotton candy. Look, there's Ange. They're everywhere. People were working second shift, third shift. I had coolers. I could see it. They were so high. Look, there's Ange. Glad she's 6 foot. 12 trailer loads came that day. That's almost 100,000 bags. We were doing over 2 million candied apples. You see them? They're bagging candied apples. There's barely enough room for them. In my new building, I think they let me look back there, and they're all laughing. But there they all are. They're back there. I got 40 ton of air conditioning to control the humidity, to keep this cotton candy rolling. There's my conveyors. And there's my bags. There's all the sugar. I could visualize it, because that's our job. Our job is to cast a vision. Then I could sell this company make well over 7 figures. We were doing almost $3 million by the time we sold it in revenue, and sold it for over seven figures. I couldn't have done that if I wouldn't have been okay taking that first 742 case order, because that's just one food line order. There were many orders, from Harris Teeter to Buy Low to everybody went to a monster truck jam. That's our cotton candy inside those bags. We sold this company again in 2019. But it's the culture that we wanted to dribble down to our employees, to be like, it's the same employees in there. There's probably 3x the employees there at this building. But those other old school employees are still there, working double time, want more hours they could possibly get. But the culture that we took down, because remember, our job is to visualize. Our job is to visualize. Our job is to visualize and to build a culture. Don't forget that. It's the team's job to get the results. Ange went on the forklift. She's been on the forklift. I've been on the forklift. I've run a pallet jack. I can run a hard pallet jack. And so could she. So could Sunshine. But that's not our job. Our job isn't to get results. The only reason we would do that is because we had to on big orders like that. Our employees' jobs are to get results. And let's not forget that. Look, the visualizations is a big deal. It's a big deal. I want you to understand that if you can visualize it, and visualization is what a lot of big performers do. Follow Michael Phelps. Follow Serena Williams. Study these people. They visualize. Watch Blue Angels. Have y'all ever watched? Go study Blue Angels. That'll interest some of you guys. Watch how they visualize in their seats, in their chairs, in a chair in a room like this, as they're visualizing. It's so interesting to watch them. They're conscious because their brains are in so much of a warp speed. It has to be on subconscious. They have to know what they're doing, and they have to visualize that movement constantly inside that. So does all the athletes. All the big athletes do this. All athletes at this point in time and conferences have psychologists on the staff. Even at the College Charleston, mid-major has a psychologist on the staff. They visualize shooting instead of just taking the shots. You know, as a little girl, Magic Johnson's sister played at the University of South Carolina. Her name was Evelyn Johnson. And I can remember, just picture if all you have kids, 8-year-old little girls. We're at a she had like a drill section, and hers was shooting. And it's something I'll never forget because she taught me how to visualize. Little circle of 8-year-old little girls, we're on our backs, and I can hear her right now say, tuck that chicken wing in, and you had a ball, and you lay on your back, and you're just shooting, and you're shooting. And you're visualizing the ball going over the front of the rim. And there we'd sit for 30 minutes, little 8-year-olds, visualizing. And every time in camp, it was time to go at Evelyn's section. That's what we did. We didn't shoot. We didn't ball handle. We visualized. And to this day, sadly, as I try to visualize businesses and stuff, when I shut my eyes, I still just see it falling over the front of the rim. And I think that had a lot to do with me being a good shooter. Caitlin Clark does it every day. And why would we not do this in our in our business? Why would we not do it? I don't understand it. If you're trying to get 1,000 doors, visualize yourself walking on that A-class type of apartment complex. If you're wanting to move from C-class to A-class, you're visualizing raising $10 million, $20 million. Jason and Bill just got a $5 million capital infusion in their business. That's crazy. We've raised, good job, Jason. We've raised $256 million and never had somebody drop $5 million in at one hit. Never. Most, I think, has been $4 million. So congratulations. But we got to visualize that. We got to visualize our business where it is. Dan Rivers and I have talked about this so many different times. Being able to play on the court, play in a business that's big enough to change his life. That's why he's doing Synergy Stage right now. That company's going to be big enough to change their life. I walked in at the helm the other day like a proud mama, and he was sitting with his team, and it was like six, 7 people there. And he was in charge and was running his meeting. And he's been visualizing that for a long time. I could see a lot of people in here that's being able to go from 10 doors and 0 doors. Trevor's talking about getting 70 doors. That's incredible. You got to visualize that in order to get there. So in closing, I want you to understand that our job is not complicated unless you just complicate it. And I'm going to say it again because it's probably going to be on a trivia question. Leaders create cultures. Cultures create behaviors. And behaviors of our employees is what gets us results. Don't overcomplicate it. The game plan, Tim's challenged us to get our house in order. I think everybody walking out of here needs to have a game plan. And if a game plan just sounds too much, what about just one thing? Russ and Dusty and I have done a lot of business together in the past. In all of our masterminds, and we run a very large real estate investment group. And Russ, I think it was you, talked about the book, One Thing. And we preached that in the Charleston community. So what is our one thing that we're going to leave here with? Maybe you are a solo entrepreneur and you got one employee. Maybe it's that you just decide you got to figure out, are you going to be a Google culture or are you going to be an Amazon culture? Which one? Or somewhere in between. You're trying to find your leadership style. Or maybe you just you're getting average results right now and you're wondering like, why? Well, probably if you work this system, go back and realize that it's the average leadership is what ultimately gets us average results. Or maybe you're somebody like me, that we're trying to build a culture that to sell it one day or to leave one day. I'm 20 years older than my partners. I won't be doing this forever. There's no way Angela Dunn's going to retire before I retire. It's not going to happen. So we're going to build it to sell it. Or we're going to build it and we'll ask for a buyout at some time. But the culture has to be there so strong that when I make that decision, it doesn't blow up. Because who has sold a company in here? Who's sold a company? Okay? One of the first questions, just trust me on this, when you go to sell it, one of the first questions that other buyer asks you, the brokers get out of the way, they ask you, how dependent is that company on you? They don't want it to be dependent on you. If not, why in the world would they buy it? I need Rehab Wallet and everybody to see Susie and Anna and Larissa and Cassidy, Harris. I need them to see them. I don't need them to see me or Ange. That's not the way it should be. If so, you leaders, you entrepreneurs in here, you're going to be locked into your business for a long time if you're not careful. Build your cultures so that sometime you can exit or hand it off and get a lot better than I am of being able to do this with legacy planning with your family. It can't be dependent upon you. So what is that one thing? I want everybody to walk out today with a few chances, a few choices in your business. Because remember, leaders build cultures, cultures build behaviors, and behaviors of our employees gets us results. Thank you, guys.